Okay, you guys, we are at lab station number 6, plasmolysis, and you have a set of instructions, and you have your notebook. Your notebook entry for this will have 3 circles at the top because you're going to be drawing some diagrams from a microscope. So there's a couple of lab techniques that you guys will need to use while you're over here. So I'm going to walk you through the different lab techniques that you will use to examine plasmolysis. It's a fancy term that looks at the cytoplasm and what the cytoplasm inside the cell does. And in this case, we're using an onion cell. This is a lab station that you may want to stop and pause and go back to the video to see how to do something as we go along. So the procedure says if you did not do the microscope videos earlier this year, you must watch the video before getting an onion. Well, I don't think we've had one this year for doing our microscope lab this year. So just as a quick recap, we're going to use what's called a light microscope. The light microscope because the light is coming in from the top. When you use a microscope, you always start on the lowest setting, which is the smallest of these adjustments. Okay? You can spin them around like this. Just be careful. Always start on the lowest. This is our base plate, and this is where we're going to put our microscope slides at. On the microscope too, we have 2 adjustments. This is our coarse adjustment. It gives us kind of a rough adjustment, a rough focus. And then when we get to a good spot with this one, this is always the one we start with on low, then we go to our fine adjustment, which is the small one. So a couple of notes about doing it. Always start on the small one. When you put a slide in here, we have the microscope, the slide clips that can help anchor it. The power switch will turn it on, and I don't know, let me see if this one is plugged in. This outlet might not work. If your outlet's not working, you might have to switch to a different one. But what you're going to do is you're going to find it on low power. When you find it on low power, go to the big coarse adjustments, just the big one, and try to adjust it so it looks as clear as it can. From there, you can then use the fine. When you have it on that one, then go over to the medium power and do the same. If you need to go on to the high, that's the largest one, you can, but you cannot use the coarse adjustment. You can only use the fine one, the little small one, to adjust it. If you use the coarse adjustment on a high one with this big tube, what's going to happen is it's going to smash the plate, the microscope slide, and break it. So please use caution when doing that. Okay. So let's get started here. It says obtain 3 pieces of red onion from your teacher. I'm going to be leaving them at the actual lab station. There's going to be red onion by itself, and yes, it's stinky. I have soap and I have hand sanitizer. There's going to be red onion in distilled water and red onion in salt water, and they are labeled. Place one of the pieces on a slide and observe the cells. So what's going to happen here is you're going to take one of the regular ones, not in anything. And you need to get just a little thin slip. And so when we're talking, oh, this one came off nicely. When we're talking about the size, let's see if I can get this up. It's really thin. You want it to be almost translucent so you can see through it. If it's too thick, you're not going to be able to see it underneath the microscope slide. But I have tweezers that you can use. Please, if they are inside one of the containers, only use them for that onion. So only use the salt water for that saltwater onion. Only use the distilled water for the distilled water onion. And then you're going to place it on the microscope slide. Now to make a wet mount, I just realized I didn't bring it over, you are going to place 1 drop of water directly on top of the onion. After you do that, you can put your cover slip on. And I have to open up the new box, or is this one? So to put a cover slip on, whenever they say wet mount, that means that you're going to add moisture. You're going to add a drop of water to the slide in order to keep it sort of hydrated. You can think of it like that, so it doesn't dry out, whatever the specimen is. And then to put a slip on it to protect it, you take the cover slip, you put it on, have it touch the slide at a 45-degree angle, and just drop it down. Be careful if you have too many air bubbles. You might catch the air bubble and when you're looking at the microscope, and so you might have to redo your wet mount. to kind of compensate for that. So it's step 2. Place one of the pieces on a slide and observe the cells under a microscope using a wet mount. Please watch the YouTube video. So this is the YouTube video on how to make the wet mount. Okay, this is going to give us something we can use for comparison. So we're going to start at the low, observe it, adjust the focus, and move up. When we are done there, we go on to step 3. You should be able to identify the cells by looking at the cell walls, the reddish cytoplasm of the cell, and the empty space in the middle of the cells, which is a vacuole. This will be your isotonic cell. So now we're learning about a new vocabulary word called iso. Iso means equal, and you can think of it because an isosceles triangle, iso, has 2 equal sides. In step 4, it says soak one of the pieces in a hypertonic saltwater solution for 1 minute and prepare a wet mount. Well, all that means is that you're going to take this off. The cover slips, I have a little container you just drop the cover slips in, and I have a container for the used slides as well. Use a fresh slide for each of these. You'll take out a piece of the saltwater one. You'll take a little piece off, create a wet mount. You probably will not need to use a wet mount because it's going to be soaking in water, so it has enough moisture in it. You can probably just put a cover slip on it. And then you're going to look at it under the microscope. And what's going to happen is you're going to compare the way that it looks with the isotonic one. Now, hypertonic is salt water. Hypotonic is pure water, and we're going to talk about the prefixes and how we can remember which one's which later on. But I'd like you to go ahead and write those terms down: hypertonic, isotonic, and hypotonic in your notebook, please, and what happens in each of those solutions. Okay? So if you have any questions, just let me know.